One of the things I found that daunts most parents is the idea of home educating multiple age groups and dividing your time efficiently. When I first started home educating, I had a newborn, a 7-year-old, an 11-year-old and a 12-year-old. And if I'm honest, I was worried at first about juggling the different needs because they are all autistic, they're just on varying degrees of the spectrum. And I found a lot of these feelings were down to expectations I was putting on myself, expectations I was putting on home education, and how I viewed education when I first started home educating. And obviously, I'm referring to my deschooling vlogs here. You need to go and check them out because they are very relevant to this process. And one of the big things that I needed to wrap my head around was that home education is family life. The two are intertwined, the two are one and the same. Home education becomes more of a lifestyle. It is still a learning journey, but it's a lifestyle at the same time. And obviously, as with all families, regardless of the lifestyle, there are times where you do feel overwhelmed, and that is perfectly natural. And taking a new journey is also overwhelming and intimidating. So again, those feelings around that are completely natural. And when it comes to home educating different age groups, those fears can seem magnified. One thing you need to remember though, is that even in a school setting, classroom disruptions occur, and on a greater scale than they do when home educating. In addition to that, a lot of the time, teachers have to move on before everyone in the class has finished, before everyone in the class has complete understanding of the topic. So again, these children are feeling very overwhelmed themselves in that school setting as a result, which obviously results in further disruptions taking place. And it's a very natural feeling, it's a very natural process to feel overwhelmed in situations that intimidate us, in situations that are new to us. That's a natural feeling. And a lot of the time it's down to the expectations we put on ourselves and the expectations that society has in general. And yet, so many home educators choose to home educate to break free of those expectations, whilst we still hold ourselves to them without realising that we are doing it. And I know you all likely get sick of hearing me saying deschooling. So my next tip is to know when you need that break, know when you need to breathe, remove yourself from the situation, calm down, reassess and come back to the situation level-headed and grounded. And it doesn't have to be anything elaborate. For me, I'll just nip in the garden and I'll water the plants quickly for 5 minutes, and then I'll come back in and I can readdress the situation in that time, refocus and come in with a renewed energy, bringing that positive energy back into that situation to calm things down and get things back on track. Because obviously, like I said earlier, my children are autistic and a couple of them have PDA as well as other conditions, so we do have a lot more disruptions than a lot of families would have as a result. It's also important to remember that home education ebbs and flows, and some days are more productive than others, and that's normal life. And even as working adults, we have days where we feel more productive and focused than we do on other days, and that is perfectly normal for us, and it's perfectly normal for children. We do tend to place a lot of unrealistic expectations on children, but I'm not going to get into all that in this vlog. And when you throw SEND needs into the mix, doing it all can feel impossible. There are more occasions for disruptions, and that was perfectly timed by my son. When Nim was really young, as a baby, I used to baby wear because that would free up my hands. So I had a sling that I'd put her in, and as she got older, I switched to a wooden wrap. And that meant she was always with me, I could always settle her, and I could still see to the other children as needed. And obviously at that time my older two had come from a school setting, so we would set up whatever activity they were doing and I'd allow them to go on with it, going over when they needed my help. And this then allowed me to focus on Anthony, who was 7 at the time and needed that one-to-one guidance a bit more. Whilst I was setting things up for the older ones and getting them settled, Anthony would be playing, and that would be his free play time. So he'd be mucking about with toys, building things out of Lego, watching animal documentaries, anything along those lines really, because we were absolutely in love with animal documentaries back then, and anything to do with dinosaurs, they were a big hit. So I always had them on hand, and I could leave him with them for 5 minutes in the corner where I was seeing to Tyler and William. As all my children got older, my process changed with them. Our homemade lifestyle changed with them. I started setting Nim up with tough tray activities first. And obviously we would all be in the same room, so she would still have me there for supervision. And once she was set up and settled with that activity, Anthony would regularly join in with her. I could then focus on William and Tyler at that time. Once I'd got everything sorted for the older two, I'd then come back to Anthony and set him up with what he was going to be doing for the day as well. Obviously, if you followed us for a while on our other channel, you will have seen that Tyler and William have grown up, gone on to further adventures, and everything has changed again. The whole dynamics of our home education journey changed because I now only home educate 2 children. So now, whilst Nim's having a breakfast, I tend to get Anthony set up with everything that he's going to do. And while he's eating his breakfast, we'll quickly have a chin wag over it. We'll see where he's wanting to go for the day. It honestly depends on what we're doing that day, what the project is. Some things they work on together, some things they don't. It really depends on what we're doing for that day, because our home ed journey is quite eclectic and quite flexible. But if we're doing something that requires sit down working at any point, then I focus on getting Anthony set up first and then move on to Nimue, because she can be eating her breakfast, watching something while I'm doing that, and vice versa. So it's a very similar process to what I had in the past really. 8 times out of 10, whatever we're doing, they can tend to do it together. And sometimes I just need to slightly tweak things to their own aptitude and abilities. For example, even with science experiments, they tend to do them together. If it's a more advanced one, Anthony tends to take the lead, and Nimue takes the lead on the more simpler ones. Another example is when we were working on the rainforest project. Anthony's was a lot more detailed and in-depth than Nimue's was. And a lot of the times, they do find ways to help each other as well. And I like to see that, and I like to allow that to develop too. So sometimes I will lead them to it, because they will generate ideas to help and support each other. Although I do need to keep an eye on them. With my 2, I do cover core subjects. And on one occasion, I caught Nimue speaking into her tablet, asking it Anthony's maths equation so she could give him the answers. Not the kind of help and assistance I was hoping for. And another thing to remember is that not every day will be plain sailing, no matter how prepared you are. Real life happens. And that is the actual beauty of home education, that real life can happen. You can go with the flow, you can go with the moment, and you can adjust things in real time. Some days you just have a calling to be together, spending time together, having fun in a relaxed environment. And obviously, as your children get older, it can get easier to juggle those needs as well. And I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It is exhausting at times. It really is. There's some nights where I just collapse on that couch and I can't even utter a sentence after 8 p.m. because I'm so exhausted. But again, I do have other health issues on top of that, which cause fatigue. So obviously, other home educators probably have a different feeling at the end of the day, but I can get very exhausted and I just want to sit there and have my downtime and chill of an evening. And sometimes that's not entirely possible. It's family life at the end of the day, and my home is quite chaotic. I don't have an aesthetic other than chaos. And again, it's natural that our children won't get on all the time. They will fight, they will bicker, and they will clash, just like children in school do. But the only difference is, in the home environment, when they're siblings, it doesn't get to the degree or level that school bullying would in that situation. You know what siblings are like. It's a typical sibling relationship in the home. So things like that do occur, clashes do occur, but these are great learning opportunities to teach our children those debate skills, those discussion skills that we wish them to grow up with as well. Your children are going to have a sibling relationship at the end of the day, and that will become part of your home ed journey too. But one of the things that we do tend to find within the home education community is how close our children become as well. They have brilliant, beautiful relationships a lot of the time. And I say a lot of the time because there's always exceptions to that rule. When they have problems, they turn to each other and help each other and support each other. But they do still bicker because they are, at the end of the day, siblings. And obviously, the years fly by. They really do. And now a lot of people use nap times as their time to get things done when they've got younger children in the home. Now my children have never been nappers, they've never done that, so I've never been able to utilise that. It's just not something that's occurred in my home. Maybe my home's just too chaotic for naps. I know I can't have one. And the aim of home ed isn't to educate between 9 and 3. It's all the time. It's a part of your family lifestyle. So you can be flexible as well. Yeah, and that opened up more opportunities to be able to educate quite happily multiple age groups. It's easy to work into your day-to-day life. And soon it just becomes your normal, your default. Because as all things with routine, once you've been doing it for a while, that does become your normal parameters for life and your lifestyle. And as they do get older, you'll tend to find that the older ones naturally want to get involved and help the younger ones, especially when whatever they're doing looks more fun. The aim of home education is to keep it as fun and as engaging as possible. At the end of the day, if your child has to wait a few minutes, that's not a bad thing. It teaches patience. Boredom is actually a good thing. That's when their own creativity can really flourish. So opportunities for your child to be bored is actually a good thing. And a sibling that's having to wait whilst another sibling is receiving that one-to-one time is perfectly fine. So being bored is good because it teaches those key skills: patience, empathy, prioritizing other people's needs, and like I said before, creativity. Tyler loves setting up the tough tray activities for the children. When she's home, she really enjoys getting stuck in with that one. Even now. She just enjoys it and seeing the joy on their faces that they're engaging with the activity that she's set up. So even now that she's at university, she comes home and she will help me with the younger ones by setting up the tough tray for me. Out of sheer enjoyment more than the need to help or the want to help. And I'm now starting to find the same thing with Anthony. He will actively engage with Nim and try and encourage her. He's always asking her sums and setting things up for her and playing different scenarios out with her, and he does enjoy getting involved with the tough tray and helping me set up certain activities too. So my final tip is, if you can't distract, if they're not finding their creativity is sparking when they're bored, so that they can create their own diversion for that time, get them involved, let them help you with what you're doing, let them help you set things up as well. Obviously it's impossible to fit everything in one tiny vlog in such a short space of time because I don't want to overwhelm people, so please do add your own suggestions in the comments below for anybody else who may be watching, because I'd love to hear all your advice as well. And don't forget to hit that follow button.